work from home, over the last 5 years, there were some changes, with COVID and a statutory cents per hour of working from home, blah, blah, blah. If you are working from home, how do tax deductions work and what work from home expenses can you claim? Electricity, internet, depreciation. Someone else wrote in the group after I'd kind of sent you these questions about if I working from home in one of the bedrooms, can I claim that room on tax? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I'm going to leave that with you and I'm going to go and get a coffee.
Oh, well, let's open a can of worms, right? So there are two methods that you can claim working from home. The first one is that fixed rate method, which you said. That's currently 70 cents per hour, and that covers all of the expenses. So that bundles everything together. That's the gas, the electricity, the internet, the home phone, the mobile phone, the stationery, the computer, consumables. And you end up with how many hours you've worked, apply this rate to it, that's the deduction. So you don't need to keep all of these bills. You don't need to keep those records because the only thing you need to keep is the hours that you've worked. So diary entries, timesheets, rosters, calendars, whatever that looks like, because again, if the tax office ever come and ask, it's on you. You have the onus to be able to prove how many hours you've done. So you just need to know how many hours you've worked. You can claim depreciation on your laptop and your monitor. You can claim the repairs on those things separately. But for all of those expenses that I mentioned before, you don't then claim that separately. So that's the first method. The second method is the actual method, which tends to get a lot more complicated because...
is it right to say the actual method, you might end up getting more back, but
yes.
you have to work harder for it by
absolutely.
keeping records and all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to work for your dinner, kids.
Yes, it's not just a free ride, right? So... yes, you claim a proportion of all of those expenses based on the usage. So you need to keep receipts for everything. You need to keep a lot more detailed records.
It's good England.
I know, sorry.
Hey, we are recording this, everyone, on a Friday freaking afternoon because it was the last minute.
It's been a long week, right?
Yeah, it has. Been a long life.
Yeah. And now we're talking working from home deductions.
I know.
Yeah. So actual method, you need to have your records. You need to keep very detailed reports on, again, your hours that you've worked, but you need a logbook. So you need those receipts. You need to keep all your gas and electricity. You need to keep all your internet, all your phone bills. You make sure, though, you don't include things like tea and coffee or rent or mortgage unless you're self-employed and you've got that dedicated home office. So that's different. You can't claim your work clothes. So really we're just talking about the office space of actually using this space within your house to claim it. Another thing you need to be careful of is travel deductions when you've got this working from home. Travel is normally not deductible between home and work. If you're working from home, that determination can get a little more tricky because you need to work out, well, where is the actual base for your employment? And so are you working from home just a couple of days from a week, but the office in town is the actual office? You're just choosing to work here for a couple of days. So therefore, if you go in for a meeting, that's not deductible because the office...
that's your office.
That's the workplace.
Yeah.
So if you don't have an office, if you don't have anywhere else, then, looking at your personal circumstances, is this your place of business? Then possibly you can claim some travel. But that's a conversation to work out exactly.
This is highly, in this hybrid workplace environment that we are living in, this is such highly personal, circumstantial. Like, here's the thing. If you're self-employed and you work from home and you rent, you could claim a square meterage of your weekly rent. But you wouldn't potentially do that if you own the property because it's going to dick with your cost base for
capital
gains tax exemption.
So you don't want to jeopardise your principal place of residence.
Yeah.
So it is really quite complicated. That's why a lot of people just go with the cents per hour method.
Now, any other kind of comments on that cents per hour versus like statutory, I think you would call it, cents per hour method versus the crunch it, spreadsheet it. I mean, at least do something if you are working from home.
Yep. How much detail or how are you with attention to detail?
Not great. No, I am for things that matter.
But that's the question, right?
The
like
question to
you
everyone.
can't half-ass it. You've got to do it right.
Yeah.
So are you prepared to put in the work? Yes, it may be a bit more work, but it could end up being quite a significant deduction.
Did I hear, and I haven't crunched this, but if you did the nominal 70 cents an hour, it's like an 8 hours from home or something. It ends up being like $80 a year or something like that. It'd be really easy to crunch, but
yeah,
it's
look,
not.
it's
this
not
is not
huge.
game-changing money.
No,
but
it's
it's
not
available
massive.
to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are working from home a lot, then, it's money for jam, right? You're entitled to it, but you need to keep the records. Like everything, if the tax office ever asks about any of your deductions, you have to substantiate it. So how are you going to do that? What are the records that you have? So, yeah, it doesn't end up being a huge amount, but anything is better than nothing. We obviously don't want to give the tax office more than what we should and claim what we're entitled to. But just make sure you've got your records. Like that comes down to all of this stuff, all your deductions. Make sure you've got your records. You can't just put in this nominal $300 and claim that.
And that's a good segue into Albanese's promise if he was re-elected with the $1,000 deduction, which I'll just update. But one thing, AI is good for, just while you were finishing, I typed in, if I work from home 5 days per week, 8 hours a day, 48 weeks a year, how many hours and how much if I could claim 70 cents per hour? So this is full-time work from home, going to town, baby. 5 days a week, 80 hours per day, 50. It's basically 1,920 hours times 70%, $1,300. So it's decent. It adds up. Yep. Maybe I was thinking around $80 a month. That's where I think I got the...
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to the Albanese government. If they got re-elected, they were going to apply a $1,000 instant automatic deduction for workers, and he has been re-elected. We will assume that the bill will get passed, receive royal assent, blah, blah, blah. So that would start on 1 July this financial year, or this year, 1 July 2025. And that would mean when for next financial year tax return, as it stands today, you could add that $1,000 deduction. Now, a couple of things that we know, and again, this could change because it's not put to bed yet. You can't claim additional work-related expenses, including work from home, if you use this $1,000 deduction.
So therefore, if you're working 5 days a week, 40 hours a week,
you would use the 70 cent.
You would use the 70 cent method.
Yeah, because you would be able to claim that
$1,344,
which is more to claim than $1,000.
Yeah.
But who knows? They could end up dicking around. Like they could end up saying, we're scrapping the 70 cents. We're just doing the 1,000. Or the DIY track your own. So if you do the DIY track and crunch your own, you can't use that and the $1,000 thing. Like you can't use 70 cents an hour and DIY.
Right. Yeah.
So I have a strange feeling in my very limited research that they might have that 70 cents on the chopping block, but we won't know. But
that's the thing. Until things are legislated, things can be talked about for a long time. Like the instant asset write-off, usually you hear about it the last few days before June. What's the actual threshold amount? So that makes it really hard to be able to plan for what am I going to spend my money on in a business to be able to get the full instant asset write-off. Makes it really hard to plan. So, yes, some of this stuff has been talked about, particularly in the election, but until it comes in, let's just work with what we've got. This is what we know, and just go from there, because it's really hard to make those assumptions because we don't know what it's going to look like.
Hey, it's Glen here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.